All right, I'd like to call this meeting of the West Southwest Milwaukee School Board to order, and I will lead us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sarah, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Sikich is excused. Ms. Steele? Here. Mr. Burns? Mr. Becker?
Here.
Mrs. Kaiser? Here. Mrs. Carr?
Here.
Mrs. Lee? Here. Mr. Keller?
Here.
President Lee?
Here. Proper notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the open meeting laws of the state of Wisconsin. Do we have any modifications to the agenda this evening?
No modifications, Stephen.
All right, we have our Central High School showcase. So board members, we could move out to the seats here in the front.
Good evening to everyone who's here present and those who are watching us at home. We have Central High School who has several students and staff members here to present tonight. They will be led by their principal, Mr. Brian Summerfield, who will start us off with the presentation. Brian.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks all for coming. Really excited to introduce, we have 3 outstanding educators with 6 of our outstanding students here for you today to kind of talk about some of the work as it connects to our theory of action. Our theory of action, just for you guys, a reminder, is about improving student outcomes. One thing we're harping on is making sure we're having high quality, standards-based instruction that incorporates differentiation scaffolding. I think you're going to see all that in the presentations today. We want to make sure that we have learning targets and success criteria to grade level, and that's a piece we want to constantly harp, making sure we can do that grade level, the high rigor. We are making sure that we have strategies with explicit professional development around scaffolding and differentiation, and we will provide systems and structures and along with data to support our PLCs, our professional learning communities. You're going to see that as well. Okay. The goal is that we want to move all our students who are currently at below basic in achievement to minimum basic, right? And then the outcome will be some serious gains on our state report card. We were very happy with the growth we made with our state report card most recently, but we're not satisfied. And you'll see the work from our students today can just kind of gets me really excited with that momentum that we're just going to continue to go up. For example, we just took our practice ACT last week. It's our second round to get ready for the actual ACT, March 20th. The data is really exciting. Already we're seeing just a huge jump from the fall to the winter. So we're excited about that. We're excited to continue to grow. Leading us off here, we have Mr. Hawksley, who's going to talk about his work in his science class. Mr. Hawksley.
Good evening, I'm Mark Hawksley. I teach science at West Ellis Central, and we're really focusing this year in science on making sure that we're teaching to grade level standards and making sure we're posting our learning targets, and hopefully our work reflects that. Next slide, please. Next slide.
Oh, not here.
That's what we try.
Is that the right way?
Yeah, perfect. So we did a lesson this fall where we were looking at the fact that freshwater is really one of the Earth's most limited resources. So the learning target was hopefully by the end of class, the students will be able to explain why freshwater is one of the Earth's limited resources, and that's taken directly from our GVC. The success criteria was the ultimate goal, the end goal of the lesson, was that students were able to brainstorm some potential solutions to water overuse in the Ogallala Aquifer and to present those solutions to. So how this relates to our theory of action, we were focusing on the part of the theory of action that if we define and aligning learning targets and success criteria to grade level and content area standards, then West Ellis Central students will have access to grade level and content standards and be able to demonstrate actions. And I'm not going to read out the standards there because they're quite wordy, but those are the Wisconsin State Standards of Science, and they're linked to the next generation science. So this lesson is directly aligned to that lesson. The students are going to talk through what we actually did in class. The first Bryce? Sure.
So we were, each student was, did you introduce yourselves?
I'm Bryce Evans. I'm a senior and Mr. Hawksley's 6th hour environmental science class. Our job as students was we were all assigned roles of different bodies. We are different roles of people. So a farmer, a businessman, an environmental activist, and we all had specific goals and things we wanted out of the aquifer. So as a farmer wants as much water as possible for his crops and doesn't want his amount of water reduced so he can still sustain his family. While an environmental activist wants to protect the endangered trout population that he calls the aquifer home. So.
Isn't it, Quentin, also in his 6th hour, and then towards after we all were assigned our roles, we would do, after we all were all assigned our role, after we all got our roles, and then we decide and we figured out what our motivations were, we would end up what we ended up doing is we would all come together, and then had to act as if play out those roles and act in negotiations as if we were those roles. So we would negotiate what we wanted to do with the aquifer. So someone who's interested in the trout population might want to is more inclined to, wants to have sustainable or practice sustainable practices. Someone who's a business owner might not really care about the sustainable practices, but would be more interested in just getting as much money out of the aquifer as they can, and stuff like that in general.
So after we did all of that, we came together and we made our solutions. Some of them were like moving the trout, giving money to farmers, using the 3 R's. And then after that, we presented it to the class like we're doing now. So, yeah.
Yeah, so the students were able to meet the success criteria. Every group in that class was able to present some of their solutions to the rest of the class. They all worked really hard together, and it was a very successful lesson.
Mr. Graff will go next. He'll be speaking on one of his art classes.
Right. That's fine. That's totally cool. I get it. Good evening. And I am Bob Graff, art teacher for Central. Happy Bulldog. And want to share a little bit about how the theory of action connects to art, right? If you have the next slide, please. Thanks. The idea is that we took some of our GBC standards. This one in this class, this is an advanced class I'm sharing tonight, all of our slides, making sure that we're using materials and starting to create an artwork that'll start to represent their early style. Next slide, please. Are you in?
Yes.
I just saw your hand on the button. Okay, very good. It's different than the original instruction. It's usually Sarah. Okay. All right. Again, we're going off of, if we define the learning targets and set the success criteria, that we create a level and a standard that our students, we know that they can meet. Sorry, I always talk fast. I'm always excited to talk about kids. So I'm going to breathe and we'll get the next slide, please. So first I'll give you Rain. I have slides there, but we did bring some work with tonight.
My name is Rain and I'm in this 4th hour advanced, and the project for this was to make an activism or a propaganda poster as seen in like historical like battles and from like history. For like, I took inspiration from mostly like the Holocaust and how they made those posters, but I ended up making a women's activist poster for like, gender equality and also women of color in the military.
The next one. Thanks. Noah can't be with us this evening. And this one and Lucy's project were based on the same project, which were really large panels that were 4 feet, we talked about their view on the world or how they would like to see things or how they see things currently. Noah is a student who's maybe not always super excited about what the concept is, but we definitely tied in. He kind of treats his art as as kind of like his own therapy. I noticed it when I had him as a student last year, and he did all these amazing, like intricate over and over kind of drawings. And art takes a lot of different roles for a lot of different people. So he was a little nervous about coming tonight, so I want to make sure I shared Noah's. And then the next student is Lucy, who's going to share her own view on that same project.
Right.
2 steps, yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I kind of wanted to do like the Virgin. I kind of did my project based on like different parts of my culture, which I'm Mexican fully. I know I look really white, but I'm fully Mexican. And yeah, like the background I incorporated the Virgin's like I don't know if you guys know the Virgin Mary, but she was like a great. And so I did the background as the middle part or like the iris part. I try to do like more incorporated Chicano art, and then marigold for like Day of the Dead, cactuses, like I just kind of did surrounding my art and like my art, my culture and stuff. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
And the goal, I mean, our goal overall was to, and sometimes the art department doesn't tie directly into ACT questions, but some of the things that we can share are, if I give my students ownership, they're going to be able to kind of work on their resilience and their grit to stick with the project for a long time. And we know sometimes that test fatigue can be a problem. So if they get a chance to work on that in my room, that's an awesome thing. Also, we have one goal, right? So it's kind of, we talked about in building leadership, if we have all of our students kind of, everybody's driving to Wausau, all of our students might take different routes. They might be driving different vehicles. But if we set up the goal in place, these students took their own routes by Appleton or by going by Madison and going north, right? And Noah takes his own. He's like, I have to get there first, and then we'll kind of figure out the bits and pieces as we finish. But overall, like, again, I'm super excited to share with you all, and I appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for this time for questions if there's any at the end, but our last presenting group is Ms. Townsend. And for a mindfulness class.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us. So I'm Heather Townsend. I am the physical education teacher. We have created, thank you to Laura Sage, who got a mindfulness class approved, and they actually get physical education credit to take this class. So it's brand new. We are creating it as we go, but we have done tons and tons of things to get the students involved. We do a lot of for our learning targets, everything's positive. Relaxation is a big part of it. So if everybody wants to join me right now, we're going to take a big inhale up. So breathe in and out. And we usually do a few of them. So one more time, breathe in. And really, it's a big thing for high school students to be able to prepare for that. We talk about the ACT, our goal target and stuff, and it's a lot of anxiety and kids get worked up about things. So we talk a lot about in our class, how are we going to become relaxed and how, what are we going to do when we get anxious or we have the test coming, we talk about breathing. And so, so we incorporate a lot. So thank you for letting us do it. A couple of things. Do you want to go? We have the health department come in from West Dallas Health Department, and go ahead.
So my name is Annika. I'm a senior at West Dallas Central. Yep, I'm still here. And the West Dallas Health Department plus this company, Milwaukee Mandalas, worked together to bring us these artworks that we could make. So we punched out like the paper that they cut out with, I think, a cricket probably. Yeah. And we put them together with these like raised glue dots and put them in the frames. And we made these.
Every student got to go home.
Wow. They were very popular.
Yeah.
Okay.
My name is Evelyn Carroll. I'm a sophomore at West Dallas Central. And my favorite part about mindfulness is definitely the yoga. It just really adds like, a break to our day. And in that class, there's just such an overwhelming sense of like positivity and community, even with students that I don't really know very well. Just doing these group exercises all together. is just, it brings a lot of like positivity to all of our days.
Yeah, so we brought some pictures, just so you can kind of see really what we do. So, and, we do group yoga, which is super fun. We usually do that on Wednesdays and Fridays. Here's some different types of yoga. So this is wall yoga, where we actually lay down and we do our exercises on the wall. We tried. Guys, that was awesome. That was awesome. And then, it was great. It was great. And then what they feel, and then we've also take adventures outside, which is Onyx's favorite part. So when it was nice, we go down by Honey Creek Park. It's like down 84th. But if you've ever walked down there, they actually have mindfulness signs on the trail. And so we drove through them. It was super cool. And we read through them. We talk about it. You know, we go through that little cemetery area like that, but it's just beautiful to go outside. We go out on the central field, you know, out there, we color, we talk about our 5 senses, you know, a lot of ways, just different ways that you can relax. Here we did some puzzles. Puzzles are great, you know, try to concentrate. Oh, those are all the Mandela projects, and it was so cool. And we had a blast, so thank you to the health department for coming to. Yeah, we've just done a lot of things. The things that I have in my hand, this is called Bala Vis X. It's a new thing. We went to a training this summer, Laura and I, and you use bean bags and you can do racquetballs, and really it's kind of a way for students to focus. But anyway, you take a deep breath. Want to show them? Okay, so what do we do?
You just start in one of the hands, then you have to cross your midline, which activates both sides of your brain. You can go back and forth, you can go around. Back and forth and all of that.
Yeah,
You also
so
use racquetballs and bounce them to a partner. You can do this in partner work, you can do it alone.
yeah. So Bala Vis X is BAL, BAL stands for balance. So you can do it grounded. We did it on 1 feet. We did it sitting. We've done a lot of bench rest. So BAL is BAL, balance. A is for auditory. So our goal is for the entire room to be in sync. You know, try to really focus. This is for vision and to trace the ball, because that's going to get you back in line, you know, to focus. And then the X stands for exercise. So yeah, we've done a lot of really cool stuff. You guys should come and hang out. It's super fun. You guys want to add anything else? Okay, all right. Thanks.
Want to add for Miss Townsend's class, things that class very easily could be something in a classroom, worksheets, and it'd be effective in some ways. The way she does it, sometimes PE for some of our students is hard to get in the class. Maybe she never with mine. 7th and 8th hour, I know exactly where it is. It's right where I stand for transition, and they are there and they're there on time and they stay the whole class and they were really engaged. So
Thank you.
Miss Townsend.
Yeah.
Just a quick comment. I really love that when you have an art teacher, you have a science teacher, a gym teacher, and like all of it, you know, we always think about the test, the math and English. But you're also, you know, having to put together pieces and research and do all these different things. The midline thing is something I just learned about, like having to cross the midline to really get your whole brain active. So I just want to say thank you for all the work you're doing. Because it obviously shows in your students. And I'm a Bulldog mom, so I love seeing all this.
Couple of comments. I was thinking back to what you guys did in art. And I noticed that you had to do a lot of research for that, because I saw even in the uniform how authentic it was and how you researched your culture and you had to figure out what it was that you were going to incorporate. And so I love the fact that we've got some writing and research and all of those things involved in art. That's wonderful. And then a question for the mindfulness. So do you see a transfer of this skill in your everyday life? Are there times when you use any of these strategies or do anything? Like, this was kind of a stressful thing to come before an audience. We know that's like the #1 fear of Americans. So do you use any of your strategies in your life? Sorry, go ahead.
I had to do another public speaking thing and I caught myself just standing there and breathing. It was like, oh my God, I'm doing what I did in gym class.
Yes, that's pretty much exactly what I was gonna say. We learned this sort of breathing, in her class, where you just breathe, only through your mouth. And it kind of just like calms you down. And I was doing that right before we came up.
Lovely.
And also the science stuff, my husband is not more science. So the work that you're doing here in high school, it absolutely travels up to college, masters and beyond. So it's great to see us doing this high level work in a high school level situation. So thanks for that.
I was just curious, being that this is the first year of the mindfulness, how many students are currently taking that class, roughly?
So 7th hour is maybe 23, 24, but these guys are in a huge, well, yeah, yours was 23, 24. Yeah. Yours is huge. It's like 33, 34.
That's awesome.
And we hold it in the wrestling room.
Yeah.
Thanks, Miss. But yeah, so it's, it's matted, it's very comforting. The kids can lay down. Like today we did guided meditation. So like they are more than welcome to sprawl out, we just kind of go through the.
Just you need to see it, how it grows, just because it does sound so intriguing that more you guys are able to share with your friends and tell them about it more like next year, wanna.
So that's a good question. We've actually, we have a waiting list now. We have 4 full sections coming up. So we've reached capacity. There's a growing demand for
Yeah.
this class. So
It's so many aspects of life, so I can only imagine, just as an adult at my age, I'm like you said, the breathing things, it's not just for, Lana's classes, it's, lots of times in your lives where that breathing, you forget. I caught myself in situations where I'm holding my breath, thinking, oh my God, this isn't good, you gotta breathe, and so to be able to naturally just kind of did it, true circumstances. I think it's amazing, so I hope more kids do find out. Yeah, it's cool. Thank you all so much.
Well, thank you so much for coming. Let's see what
That's a compliment. He's awesome. Okay, good. Yes. So, yeah, let's see. So that's gonna be, what about you? I could look a copy of the job. I can grab you one.
I have them back here.
Oh, okay.
Again, do I get on it? Sure, you're fine. And I just sit. Yeah.
All right, thank you again for the students and the staff from Central for coming and talking to us a little bit of what's happening there. It's always great to see what's going on in some of our schools this evening. So we will move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. I also want to send a shout out to the Central Bulldogs for presenting tonight, led by Mr. Summerfield and teachers. In particular, I want to thank Mr. Graff, my birthday brother over there. It's good to see you as well. Legislative updates, record $70 million in funding announced for public school libraries. Secretary of Schools Sarah Godlewski announced a historic $70 million distribution from the Common School Fund to Wisconsin Public Schools, marking the largest distribution in the fund's 175-year history. The fund, established in 1848, is the sole source of financial support for books, technology, and other essential learning tools for over 90% of Wisconsin's public school libraries. Under the BCPL's financial stewardship, distributions from the Common School Fund have nearly doubled in recent years. Under Godlewski's leadership, distributions from the fund have diversified hundreds of millions of dollars to include Wisconsin-based venture funds that support new and growing businesses. The Common School Fund bolsters Wisconsin economy and directly supports schools and libraries, reinforcing its commitment to educational excellence and opportunity. If you recall, the first day of school, we had a visitor, Dr. Williams was from this particular department. And so we definitely have a voice down in Madison who's speaking on our behalf. And so these funds are definitely needed as we improve our libraries as well as our school technology within our learning centers. We do have a couple of shout outs tonight that we want to congratulate some student athletes in particular. So the first student athlete I want to bring up is Mr. Amadi Cameron. On December 18th, Amadi secured a pin to earn his 100th career varsity win. We are so proud of his dedication, hard work, and determination on and off the mat. So I'm going to ask Amadi to come up. I've had the opportunity to see him wrestle personally, and his dad is intense with it, boy. I tell you. So I'm not sure if Dad is here tonight, but just tell him I've seen his intensity, and I'm proud of him too as a parent, and I'm very proud of you. I visited Amadi, I believe it was on December 20th, right before the break, and congratulated him personally on securing his 100th win. And I'm going to ask all of the board members to come on up real quick. Okay, let's do it real quick. We'll do a picture. Come on, Bill. Come on up, man. Mom, come on up.
Central. We get one more for Coach. Coach Business is right here. Oh. I was like, whoa, bring it. Yeah, I got a second. 10 seconds. What people?
The next presentation tonight is for two seniors at Nathan Hill High School, Mr. Thomas Metley and Mr. Jay Kruger. So let me give you the visual of my experience with wrestling. Okay. Prior to this year and last year, it was nothing. All right. It's just not really a popular sport in Texas for several obvious reasons. A Midwestern sport. But when I tell you the other day, I had the opportunity to come and see Hale wrestle against I believe it was Tulsa West, I believe it was. And they had this light in the middle of the gym, and the gym is dark. And when I tell you, I wanted to get out there and wrestle. I was that pumped about it. And I walked in on Thomas's match. And I am a huge fan. I've seen Thomas wrestle at least twice. And Jay and these guys are into it. I want to congratulate them on also earning 100 career wins over the winter break. So we are so proud of you. I look forward to the next couple of matches. I will be there and make a point to be at you guys' matches to support you and cheer you on. And I'm learning. I'm trying to figure out the point system. I don't know the point system. I just know we're winning. And that's all that matters. Right? So just want to congratulate you, bring you up. I also want to shout out Tristan North, who earned his 100 career win just last weekend. Due to the timing of it, we were unable to get him here. However, we will arrange for him to come at a later date to be recognized as well. So at this time, I want to recognize Thomas and Jay. Come on up.
Coach.
I don't know. For the sake of the protocol, I don't know. Yeah, but.
Come on over, come on over.
Appreciate it. Okay. So I've had a couple of volunteers to help me with the point system, so I promise I'll be better in the future. I want to recognize our educators of the month. Congratulations to Jen Houston, deeper learning coach at Horace Mann, as well as Brittany Tesmer, first grade teacher at Hoover. We visited these schools right before the break. And if you can see, I have my red and white jacket on. I was all in the candy cane Christmas festive mood. So again, congratulations to Brittany Tesmer and Jen for a job well done. Just a list of community visits, some prior to the break-in on the last couple of weeks. Lunch and breakfast with Western Intermediate students and parents. This was a reward for good attendance as well as getting to class on time. City Schools meeting, West Allis Rotary meeting, sledding at Irving and with the ID class. When I tell you, I was tricked, to be honest with you. I was told, come and watch the students as they sled on a snow day. And that this is from Sarah. This is what Sarah told me. So I said, absolutely. So when I showed up, the comms team said, okay, we're ready for you. I said, what are you ready for? What do you mean? They said, you're gonna sled. You're gonna go down the sled. I said, no. And they said, yes, you are. The kids are waiting on you. And you know, I'll do anything for the kids. And so I want to thank Gio. Gio was the driver of the sled. And I think Gio was more afraid than I was, but we made it through. So and I understand that video kind of went viral a little bit. I'm just glad we did not flip over and did not embarrass myself. Also on the 20th, during the break, I did attend the WAC wrestling tournament. It was a great event. There were a lot of schools and parents in attendance. So it was great to see that. On the 21st, I actually participated with the West Milwaukee Lions Club. I want to thank Village President John Stileski for Stileski. I'll keep messing his name, Mr. Stileski, for inviting me to participate. And then Parent Teacher Association district meeting on last Wednesday. And the Nathan Hill band concert also on that particular night. And there's a picture of with the Lions Club on the 21st. Tonight, our star, we have our voice member and student representative, Miss Elena May. Miss May is a junior at Nathan Hill High School. She's a member of the Nathan Hill Renaissance Team, National Honor Society, Rotary, Interact, HOSA, Yearbook Club, Mentor Program, Symphonic Orchestra. She plays the violin. And she's an athlete on the cross country team and track and field team. I want to formally introduce Elena May and allow her to say some words and let us know what's going on in Nathan Hill right now.
Hi, I'm so honored to be here, so thank you for having me. Yep, I'm a junior at Nathan Hill High School, and I'm 16, but I'm actually turning 17 tomorrow, so.
Happy birthday.
So at our school right now, we just have finished up the practice ACT. I think it went pretty well in my class, at least. It was very calm. Everybody was focused in, and that was good for me. I'm just gonna pull up my notes here. So end of December, we had some different climate and culture activities to get students involved in, holiday fun, make things a little bit easier going into the break. Some things we did were hot cocoa for free, spirit days, which people got into, decorating doors, which would be rewarded by like donuts, I think. So that was something that people did. Another thing we've been doing to get students involved is like call-ins. So we had a hint, and every morning you'd have to open the hint and you'd have to guess which location it was. So one of them was like Rome, Italy, and then one of them was actually West Dallas, Wisconsin, and you had to call in, and if you called the fastest, you'd get a prize for the class. So that was a real popular one that got a lot of students going. We just got a new gym floor and we've been putting that to use, as well as a new hallway floor in the athletic area. Recently they've been doing some painting of the walls. We've gotten some new sinks and just overall improvements. And I think we've been really grateful for that. Just making sure our facilities stay up to date, clean, and effective. Finals are coming up, so we will be focusing in on that. This week is probably going to be a little stressful for some students, but I think everybody's doing it pretty good. They do offer some exemptions for us, which is helpful as well. And then coming up, we are looking towards the end of the semester, and one of our teachers actually just came up with a fantastic idea called Snow Blast. And what that is each group of students gets with a group of 6 and like 3 boys, 3 girls-ish, just to include some diversity in there. And the teams are going to compete against each other as long as it's approved. We just had this conversation in our Renaissance team meeting. And it sounds like a lot of fun. So they would compete in different activities like sports, academics, popular trends today, that kind of stuff. And then the top team might get like a t-shirt or something and maybe be recognized at the pep rally. We're also looking at student recognition at our end of the semester pep rally. So we want to recognize students that have been doing good. We want to maybe recognize students who have gotten, good attendance, who are in sports at the moment, and all that sort of stuff. And I think things are going pretty well for this semester, and I hope next semester is just as good.
Excellent. I wanted to allow you to introduce your guest.
Oh, yes. Excuse me. My mother is here today with us.
Yay, welcome up.
My dad, I believe, might be watching from home too. So hi.
I'm pretty sure he is, and he's got some notes for you. I want to thank the maids for their continued support of our district. And thank you, Elena, for being here tonight. We're so glad to have you. That concludes the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you very much. Move on to item 8, public comments this evening. There's no one currently signed up for public comments. So I'll wait 15 seconds. If there's someone in the Zoom that would like to sign up, there should be a link in the chat to do so. Right, seeing no additional signups, I'm going to close public comments at this time. Move on to item 9, our board reports. Starting with 9.1, review of the board calendar. So today is January 13th. We have a regular Board of Education meeting, and then we have 2 financial stability and efficiency workshops, one on enrollment projections and open enrollment seats, and the second one on the referendum updates. Then January 27th at 6 p.m. for regular Board of Education meeting, and then a workshop on the strategic plan. Then on February 10th at 6 p.m. we have a regular Board of Education meeting, and then a winter fall screener data presentation, AGR data review workshop. February 17th at 6 p.m. we have a board meeting workshop on the audit. And then on February 24th at 6 p.m. we have a regular Board of Education meeting. And then we have multiple financial stability and efficiency workshops. Moving on to 9.2, our board committee reports. We have one this evening, college and career readiness, 9.2.1. Ms. Kaiser.
Hi, thank you. We met this evening. We were joined by Chris Lareshki, our coordinator for secondary instruction. Last meeting, we had a student come to us asking about AP options for freshmen. The information that we have at this point is that this Okay, we need data and focus groups to identify key performance indicators, including licenses, teacher, interest from students. It would definitely fit into a strategic plan that is being worked on for our district moving forward. There was definitely, he was able to find information and reach out to like New Berlin, Elmbrook, and Wauwatosa, who have similar programs that we do. And a lot of what we offer, we could definitely offer into our 10th graders. It was brought up a little bit of a concern of like, is it too much for freshmen or how would that work? But that is definitely like, we're at the start of this journey. We also want to make sure the issue of equity comes up. We have four high schools basically. So we have 4 secondary schools. We want to make sure that students at Central and DVLA have the same options as Hale and Dotkey altogether. But at this time, it is looking as though that, you know, as a committee, I don't want to speak for us, but I believe we all are very much in agreement of moving forward. What can we offer? Sky's the limit for our students who deserve whatever we want to get them. And right now, the earliest this option could come in would be 2026, 2027. Not for next year, for the year after, but that would entail just knowing, you know, which teachers are interested, students who are interested, and going forward from there. So more information to come, but it's definitely a very positive update. That's my report.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kaiser. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Kaiser regarding her report? Or any items to consider in future agendas? Ms. Kaiser.
Just an update that something that did come up was, especially with AP, that we do have these clusters where, like, you know, if you want to go into healthcare or whatnot, there are these cluster groups. We have talked about something that we brought up for future discussion are more career tracks of if you want to go to be a doctor, well, here is your AP, here's your sciences, here's your stuff. And we would like to have, although we have these clusters, real neatly on a page, here's what you should be doing if you would like to go this route. So that is something we are discussing for future meetings.
So just to clarify, with the strategic plan work that's going to begin, that we'll talk about actually on the 27th in our board workshop. We're going to talk about those pathways that you're speaking of, and specifically with the pathways, we are going to work. Your committee in particular is going to be working to create those key indicators where we're going to define what a graduate from our district looks like. And part of that work, it includes increasing AP courses. It includes increasing our dual credit offerings as well as those licensing opportunities for students. So those are 3 areas where under your committee in particular, we will be working to make sure that we have those measurables. So at the end of this 5 years period in 2030, we'll be able to measure whether we're successful or not.
Fantastic.
Any other questions or possible agenda items for Ms. Kaiser's committee? Seeing none, thank you very much, Ms. Kaiser. Move on to 9.3 board member reports of community events. Any community events that board members attended they would like to report on? Ms. Kaiser?
Much Ado About Nothing is on January 23rd through 26th. I highly recommend folks go to see the production. They are always amazing. Tickets are on sale now at wawmtheater.com.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like to report on events they attended or might attend in the future? It's been a while since the break. I was able to attend the Nathan Hale choir concert before winter break. I don't remember the exact date because it was so long ago, but it was great. I enjoy those concerts. And I also did something I try to do from time to time. And now that we have a new food service vendor, I wanted to go and have some of the food because sometimes you get complaints. And it's like, well, I don't eat the food. I don't know. Maybe it's great. Maybe it's terrible. So I went to Nathan Hale and had some lunch there on the 20th and just tried it out for myself. I tried to have a little bit of the different things they had there that day. And so it was good to see also kind of how things flow in there. And I talked to some students, like, well, what do you like to eat? Like, what's your go-to thing? Because there's some things that are there all the time. And then there's like a rotating station, if you will. So I think it was enlightening. You know, my palate might not be as well refined as some others, but overall, I thought it was good. So it's something I like to do. I am going to try to do that at intermediate and elementary school as well, just because there is different offerings there's fewer offerings the further down you go. So I think it's important to know that. That's all that I have to report on myself, and I do not have any additional update items for 9.4. So we'll move on to our consent agenda this evening, starting with 10.1, our approval of minutes from our December 16th regular Board of Education meeting. 10.2, our employment summary, and 10.3, our supplementary contracts. Does anyone need anything separated out?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any last minute discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Right, that passes. Now move to our action items this evening, starting with 11.1, Frank Lloyd Wright field trip to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I have Miss Sage here to talk about that.
Hi, thank you. And actually, I'm simply introducing, I believe it's Brendan. We have, 3 teachers that have done the proposal for the field trip for Frank Lloyd Wright students for next year. Jen Kempka, and I believe we have Sarah and Crystal. Yep, I see them there.
Yep.
They're joining us and they will actually, explain what's happening with the field trip. Am I bringing up the?
Hi, I'm sorry. I can't, I couldn't hear what you said. I don't know if you're bringing it up or Crystal, are you going to bring up the slides?
You guys can go ahead. You should be able to share your screen if you have something to share.
Okay. Crystal, are you there?
I'm pulling it up right now.
Okay. There she is. All right. Sounds good. Well, and while she's pulling that up, I can just introduce myself. I'm Sarah Casso from Frank Lloyd Wright Intermediate School. I'm a Spanish teacher over there. And as she said, Crystal is also at Frank Lloyd Wright, social studies teacher. This is probably like the 15th trip I've done at the middle school, taking kids to different places, from DC to New York to where else? Boston. We went to New Orleans, and our next trip is to Philadelphia. As you guys can see, those are the dates, obviously. I think we can skip this slide, right, Crystal? Crystal, did you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, so some fast facts about it. We are going from October 8th to the 10th in 2025. Right now the price is at 1,934, and then this includes the refund insurance. We've found in the last couple of years, just with kids moving out of our district, kids becoming ineligible to go, becoming sick before leaving. We've even had an injury before, that it's just best to have the parents take out the insurance because then they get more of their money back for it. So with the full refund insurance, that is the final price. We tell all the parents when we have the meeting that they do have to carry the insurance for the trip. So it will be all current 7th grade FLW students are eligible for this trip because it is now our 8th grade trip. So that will be their 8th grade year. So it'll be the 25-26 school year.
Okay, and the next one, payment plan financial aid. When parents sign up, they can either choose to pay for the whole trip right away, or they can also go on a payment plan and make payments as they go along. World Strides also provides financial aid for families who qualify. So I believe if their family income is under 80,000 total, they can apply for financial aid. And if they qualify, they're able to get help for paying for the trip and also possible scholarships of up to $1,000. That's one of the reasons why we've gone with this company for so many years.
Also, another really cool thing about this company is that when we hold the parent meeting, if parents sign up right away after the meeting, I think within 48 hours of us giving the meeting, they actually get a $100 discount with it. So that $100 will be subtracted then off of that total price. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, yeah, the next couple of slides are just some of the things that we will be doing in Philadelphia.
So go ahead.
I was just at the Philadelphia City Hall. There's also the U.S. Mint, obviously where money is made.
And then one of the cool things is the kids do get to go by the Rocky Steps. I do think it's next to some of the other things we're doing, so that's part of it. Then the Independence History National Park, which is kind of similar to in Washington, D.C., the mall that they have. So it's kind of in that realm. And then to continue Independence Historical National Park, so the kids will be able to take a look at the Liberty Bell and go over a lot of our early American history. So we kind of talked about this a lot as we used to do the Washington, D.C. trip, but when we looked at the other trips that World Strides provides, we actually could go to the places where the history that these kids are learning about actually happened. So Philadelphia obviously is a huge part of early American history, so they will be able to kind of be immersed within that.
And there's also Elfler's Alley and Valley Forge National Park. I don't know, Crystal, if you want to talk a little more about that.
It's just kind of like a simulation. So it's kind of like an old world Wisconsin. If you've ever been there, that's what this alley is. They dress in time periods. They have different shops and stuff set up that the kids can look. It's kind of like a living museum almost.
So what's all included? Obviously, our flight to Philadelphia and home, the hotel accommodations, 2 nights and 3 days, and then all of their meals are included as well, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and all entrance fees to the attractions on the itinerary. So literally, they do not have to bring any money with them other than if they want to buy souvenirs. So everything is included in the price. I think that's it, right, Crystal?
Yeah.
Has anybody signed up yet, or is this, it's not till next October? So will there be a meeting, in the future for parents?
So we were just waiting for board approval, and then we will hold our parent meeting for all 7th grade families, and then they will get to start signing up then.
How many kids do you need to make the trip?
I'm not sure that there is like how many exact students that we need. I believe we usually end up getting at least 30 students that go on the trip. It depends, it varies. We've had 30, I think our New York trip, we had like 45. Prior to that, we used to do a combined trip where it was 7th and 8th graders. We had over 100 kids go on the Boston trip. That was crazy.
Any other questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any last minute discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Right, that passes.
Have fun.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
All right, move on to 11.2, our WASB resolutions. Mr. Becker in front of that, but so the resolutions that we have every year, we have the state convention coming up here next week. And at that convention, there's always resolutions that the Wisconsin Association of School Boards would discuss and then potentially pass. Now, as we know, resolutions from WASB are not binding as far as what will actually happen, but the goal is to then hopefully send a message to the Wisconsin legislature about sorts of things we as a school board and the Wisconsin Association of School Boards would like to see happen as far as what new laws are passed or what funding is being prioritized. So the proposed resolutions were emailed out to all the board members beforehand. And Ms. Kaiser, as our WASB delegate, would be the one to cast our vote as our school district towards those resolutions based off of our kind of approval of those resolutions here today. If something were to happen and Ms. Kaiser wasn't able to attend the delegation, then Mr. Becker would step in as our alternate. So since we have those resolutions that haven't been sent to us, do we have any questions that we want to talk about with any of those resolutions? Ms. Carr?
As I was reading through the resolutions, I just, it just really occurred to me how important all of these are. I just feel like they're really, really things that we as board members and as community members, we always say to ourselves, oh, we've got to get to those legislators. We've got to, have you talked to them, and I just feel like it's so important. And I just have a couple of things. So, Resolution 2501, which is Blue Ribbon Commission, that was established in 2018. That was 6 years ago. It has been ignored by legislators thus far with the 20 recommendations. Do you know, Kristen, were those 20 recommendations the same, or have they been changed over that time? Because according to what it said, the legislators have not taken any action.
There have been no changes. One thing that WASB does do is that we're like the lobbying committee for the state on behalf of school boards.
Right.
And so that this was a resolution brought up by another school district who's, it's nice to bring it up once in a while because they don't come up every single year. I haven't seen this one in a while before.
Okay.
So it obviously is something that someone noticed and probably was messing up their own blue ribbon awards and whatnot. So it is something that we are going to bring back. That if voted yes upon by the delegates, it would be brought back.
Okay. And then I know that resolution 2504,
Yep.
which is decoupling public and private school funding, separating the state funding. Can you talk to us a little bit about why that's important and why we should support that?
Absolutely. And Mr. Norris, please jump in if I'm incorrect somewhere here. Under current law, the expansion of school choice, so would increase local property taxes because the money comes out of our accounts. And then so we would have to increase our mill rate, our tax levy, to make up for the money we're losing by going to school choice. We want that money decoupled so that taxpayers are paying for their public schools and the other money for school choice and independent charters and vouchers and stuff are paid by in a separate account, is my understanding, because it is not as a public school, and this is my opinion, it is not going to be we can't continue as public schools if money is being taken out of without overburdening the taxpayers. So if we separate these two things, taxpayers are still paying for their public schools.
So what really is happening, the difference is when it comes to the private, and this was something was put up with the legislature to put on tax bills. So
Yeah.
you could see what percent it was, because it all gets levied underneath our levy as a school district. But because 100% of vouchers comes from property taxes, instead of having it split between state aid and property taxes, like public school students are done. When additional voucher students are put into place, essentially it raises the taxes on everyone's property values without any sort of referendum, any sort of input. And that's how it's written. So the goal would be that when moving forward, it would not be underneath our tax levy that this stuff is coming out. Because right now we levy it, we never see the money, it goes directly to those private schools, and then they subtract from the aid that we get as a school district. So because our aid amount is more than the amount for the vouchers, that's how it's working right now. But as Aaron has mentioned previously, there used to be caps, the number of percent of students from each district that could go for voucher schools, and that cap is lifted for this next school year, the 25-26 school year. So that's something that could increase property taxes quite a bit.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks for clarifying, both of you. That was good information. Resolution 2508, accountability and school report card. This one I'm confused. And I know that it's because I'm missing something. So if you could just help me figure this one out. Now
That's mine.
yeah, it says the new accountability system would calculate overall scores based on achievement only. So that like red flag for me, because as our district, we talk a lot about growth and I personally feel that, graduation rate and attendance and all those things, I feel like they should be weighted as well. I'm not sure I agree with this one because I feel like we deprioritize that. And I think that they're also connected. So, but I might be missing something. So if you could speak to that, Kristen.
Yeah, and this was one I actually wanted to bring to the board. Calculating student achievement only, I believe. I'm not sure where I'll go with that. I'd like Dr. Robinson or Mr. Norris to speak on that. I personally agree with the redefinition of establishing consistent scoring metrics across grade bands. I believe if you look at all the K-5 kids in West Allis, as opposed to Hoover and Horace Mann and starting to compare our schools against each other. And the day we are a school district and we're serving all these kids, and so we should have that consistency across the boards. I personally agree with the scoring metrics across grade bands. I don't know how I mean, personally, this is why I want to bring it to the board of like, how would you like me to approach this during the delegate meeting? Do I talk about it or do I ask more questions about it? Of looking at student achievement only, it doesn't factor in a lot of other factors, including our students with disabilities, our students who are ELL, our students who are transient. Right. We have a diverse community that we serve. While this might not affect other school districts that are
there's some
not as much.
You know, just
I would love to hear.
just a comment. I don't know if I have much to add to Jane's question, but there's a lot of political pieces behind this one, I believe. And if you're following the upcoming April election and which agencies have pledged support for Dr. Underlay and which haven't, a lot of it's tied to this. A lot of suburb schools are very unhappy with the most recent changes to the straight report card. You know, and I guess I'll leave it there. So maybe
that's exactly correct. This is a rural versus urban question. You have are more schools that are in highly affluent areas would support this more than students those districts that are serving students of color or poverty. That's a major issue. But keeping in mind why we're here, school boards are made up of different people and who have different beliefs and who have different things that they want to go with. So I'm very confident that this type of a resolution is someone who's probably looking opposite of the way we look.
And knowing this school district that wrote this resolution, that's absolutely politically charged.
Yeah,
It's very politically charged. That is very true.
So yeah.
You can actually look and see who it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
you
I
can see
did not.
which split each one.
So as we decide as a board, we're going to support these. I feel like that's something that we need to decide, because I know I won't support that resolution.
I would recommend not supporting that one. 100%.
Agreed.
Thank you very much for that guidance. How do others, it's like 3 or 4 people, other people, how do they feel? You know,
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, that's how they used to do districts, was only by achievement. That's why they created the report card in the first place, is to take into account more than just what they scored on your ACTs or your Fastbridge scores. So it doesn't make sense to go back to that, because we all know, I mean, any school board should know, like, there's a lot more to the success of a school district and the students in that school district than what they score on a single day in a test.
Thank you. And that was like, Ms. Carr brought it up to me beforehand. I said, that was one of the ones on my list. So I wanted to bring to the board because it gets feisty during a delegate assembly sometimes. And so I want to know how people would like me to speak.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Yeah.
And there was bipartisan support to your comment, Mr. Lee, about that report card when that went into place. So it's surprising. I guess maybe the pendulum swung a little too far for those groups. No, I haven't gotten much clarity around that of why, but it's interesting. So.
Yeah, it didn't, when I saw it, it didn't make sense to me why we'd go back. So if anything, you want to introduce more things that we putting more details in to try and really drill down to it. But Ms. Carr, did you have others?
I got one more.
Okay.
Okay, so resolution 2506, which is early childhood education funding and public and private partnerships, state funded funding 3K and all day 4K. Love that. Support that 100%. And just want to have us as a board think about this now. If we're going to, the second part of that is creating that partnership, collaboration between districts and established childcare providers. Now, you know that that's one of the things that I've always talked about, having childcare for teachers, staff members, and maybe even community members. So as we decide if we're going to support this, that's a piece that we could have control. We don't need legislation for that. So I just want to talk about or plug that a little bit, that we want to get those kids in school, 3K, all day 4K, and then help with that childcare for community and staff. So I'm in big support of this one. And I just wanted to say why, and I hope you all support that one as well.
I took that a little bit differently than you did, Ms. Carr.
how did
As
you-
far as the partnership went, I thought it was to more try and get more education into the childcare versus providing childcare for education. I think the bigger piece of it is the 3K and 4K funding, but the whole private public partnership, I guess I wasn't taking it as working with childcare centers to provide childcare, but to try and, I guess, inject more education into childcare versus, depending where you go and really what you can afford as a parent who has gone through this not too long ago. Sometimes you have childcare, which is like, I keep your kid alive from the point you drop them off until you pick them up again.
Yeah.
Versus they're here, they're enriched, they're getting, somewhat, and they actually have early education licensures and degrees that they're working with your child. So I think I was thinking more along the lines of trying to get more of that versus I'm just making sure your kid's still breathing and healthy and fed and, clothed, that sort of thing. But when you pick them back up again.
Yeah.
And I guess I wasn't clear because to that point, one of the things that I always said was if we're providing that childcare, boy, are we going to infuse some of that educational piece into we're going to automatically, naturally do that. And so I think that is something, that's one of the reasons that I think ours would be, having childcare in our district would be beneficial to everybody because we would be able to do that more just naturally.
I think the partnership too is like identification of students with disabilities in 3K, because that's a pretty service that we do provide under state law. And I think it's like, how do you know if a student is identified if you don't have eyes on them, or if you're not seeing students and having access, and partnerships leads to that help.
If they don't utilize daycare, you might never know until you get to school.
Exactly, yeah.
Ms. Carr, thank you for going. Yeah. Going through all these.
Anything else, Ms. Carr?
That's it.
Ms.
We already covered what the one I.
Did anyone else have any specific resolutions that we wanted to discuss or have any questions about? No? Okay, so what I heard was that we were in favor of all the resolutions except for the resolution about the state report card. What was the number of that again?
2508.
2508. So that one we would vote no on from the board.
It's in my notes, ready to go.
And then it would be a yes on all the resolutions that we have proposed, or that have been proposed, I should say.
Yep.
And then just so everyone knows, there is a potential that there could be emergency resolutions. Those are resolutions which are not in here. There was one last year, if you recall, it came from on the Milwaukee Public School District. There weren't any this year, but there is a potential there could be one that happens between now and when that convention does occur. Ms. Kaiser would take her best opinion about that when at the time, so that she could be able to give her vote for our district at that point, just so everyone is clear on that. But
And sometimes someone will be like a resolution that day.
Yeah.
And say this has to come up today, and then we vote whether or not to even hear it. And so and then it could go forward. So there's a process, but I've yet to be there when an emergency one passed through.
And the other possibility is amendments. So some districts might say, I like this resolution, but we want to amend it this way. And so then Ms. Kaiser would have to make her best guess about how the board would think with that. But that's basically how it is. So hearing that, so do we have any other questions? Always we'd look to approve these resolutions. I think any motion second that based as discussed, as we have discussed.
So move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any last minute discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That
Thank you,
passes.
everyone.
Thank you very much. All right, so now that ends the business portion of our meeting this evening. We'll move on to our workshop, starting with 12.1, our referendum workshop number 2, Dr. Robinson and Mr. Norris.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Since the approval of the referendums on November 5th, we've received a number of questions. What's next? When are we going to do this? When are we going to do that? And so part of the process of being transparent, we've sort of set up times where we would update the public on where we are with the referendum and next steps. So this is another effort of us just really being transparent and keeping everybody in the loop of where we are. And as we move forward with things that we have in place and planning to do. So I'm going to turn it over to Aaron right now, who's going to walk us through the work that we've done so far, and then the things that we have next steps.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Robinson. And I just echo Dr. Robinson's sentiment. This is the process. And so we're kind of chipping away at all the things that have to happen. And while working through those, trying to be transparent with both you, the board, our staff, and the community. So We have a number of areas that we'll go through high level tonight. If you have questions, please feel free throughout each section to ask them. Happy to answer them. And again, some things we're nearing the end, some things we're just starting, some things we're in the middle of. So each thing has its own little timeline. So you'll see some consistency throughout the presentation of where we're at with each area. So again, the agenda is about six items, really five. And the last is kind of where to go. If you have questions or if you receive inquiries, where to push them. I want that to be communication you feel comfortable with to, people in the community or vendors or whoever, et cetera. So we'll talk about the bond sale. That was really good news. We'll share in a minute. The financial services RFP we'll talk about, the project manager posting, kind of where we're at with that. And then we have the 2, 4, and 5 are the RFPs for both the CM firm, construction management, and the owner's representative. And then we'll finish up with referendum, where to look, and then any questions you might have. So bond sale, we'll start there. So really great news. I know, I believe prior to Christmas, the board took formal action to approve the parameters resolution, which authorized Mr. Lee, myself, Dr. Robinson, and obviously our partner Baird Financial to proceed with the bond sale we thought was most prudent. And again, given the number of districts that had successful referendums, many districts were looking at selling in February or March. So we thought it might be in our best interest to sell in January. Should be able to get disclosure information done, our credit rating checked, et cetera, et cetera. And we were able to, which is really great news. And I have to say, because of the board's action for the parameters resolution and our credit rating increasing, which was really great news because we saved on insurance, just like a homeowner putting down 20%, you save the PMI, right? Our interest from projected was down almost a full percent. We projected 4.75, which was a little conservative, but I mean, unknown waters here, right? We're talking August of 24 leading up to referendum. Feds were talking about cutting rates, things are moving really quick in that arena. So just under a percent, right? So what does that mean? Well, that 1% in interest, which is paid for by the community, is nearly almost it's a little over $5.5 million the community will save in interest. So by the school district, the administration, the school board, and everyone that's in our entity, by having good financial practice that's consistent, that's audited year over year, and the board taking good action, that's exactly how the community saves money, right? So it's good practice, and you can see, it's not a substantial savings for the average taxpayer, but a savings is a savings. So we just want to highlight this is really great news for the community, really great news for the school district. So those documents, thank you to Ms. Carr, Mr. Lee, and Ms. Kaiser for signing those tonight. We'll get those back over to Baird and get this kind of buttoned up and finished. And then we'll be looking at issuing on the 28th. So the funds will actually be deposited into the firm who won the bid for the financial services. So it kind of leads us into the next section here. So getting to that, the financial service RFP, this is
So Aaron, I'm sorry. Oh, do you want us to wait for questions?
You can ask them if in each section, feel free.
On this one, I just want to be, so just to be clear, these savings is the projected amounts that we were talking about during the referendum campaign and the ones that were approved are essentially going to be reduced by the amounts that we have here.
Exactly.
Annually.
Yeah. So we projected for this, I'd have to check again, but the amount we projected that we communicated to taxpayers will be reduced by $10, $20, $24, $30, depending on their home value for next year's levy.
Yeah. Very good. I just want to make that clear for
absolutely. Yeah, good question. So the next section is the financial services RFP. So again, just to kind of highlight why issue an RFP, just kind of talk about that for financial services. So a couple of things. There's some purposes and benefits that obviously are required, and also just kind of a good place to go for our district at this time. One, establishing a fund management solution. So what that's for, it identifies the best institution to safeguard our funds. So since we receive all 70 million at one time, a RFP is perfectly appropriate to figure out who's the best person to hold these funds, what can they do for us, who does everyone else use in a competitive bid market. That's exactly why we do something like that. It ensures fiscal responsibility. It promotes transparency. It allows us to get some outside expertise in what do districts do that pass these. We're certainly new to this. This is not certainly new to the state of Wisconsin and to other school districts, so it's good news. And really the goal is to optimize the amount of money you can make. So if we take out a $70 million issuance, but we can make $5 to $6 million off that issuance, that means we can get $6 million more projects essentially done with that money, which makes the community's money go that much further, right? So that's the goal. And then again, allows us to hopefully long-term, because the RFP was written to be a financial partner, not just for referendum funds, allows us to strengthen our partnership because, we have good relationship with our current financial institution, but if this firm can make money for us in fund balance that we have, this is a great partnership beyond that too. So that's kind of the why. So a quick just overview of what the timeline we went through, which I think predates the board meeting workshop 1, but you can see we released it December 11th. We had a short window for pre-proposal questions. Answers were given about a week after it was released. The firms had about 2 weeks to review the RFP and submit if they had questions. We reviewed proposals shortly after the holiday recess. We came back and we had vendor presentations. We had 3 firms bid. I'll get to that in a minute. All 3 were able invited in for presentations. And then we're here tonight for the update and then recommendation in 2 weeks. And the day after that will be when the money's wired. So it's times up really nicely, actually. So the 3 firms that bid, 2 are really major players and one's relatively new, but has some references that are legitimate in the area. American Deposit Management, ADM. They bid. They currently serve about 13. They currently have 13 employees. They serve about 1,800 people. They really do work with a lot of schools across the state. Ampersand's relatively new. You can see ADM's about 15 years in existence. Ampersand is relatively new. They just have started getting into school finance. And it's really interesting. I shared this with cabinets, but the president of Ampersand shared with me a good story. I think it's interesting. I just find this stuff's pretty dry, right? So it's like a good story I tell, right? So she had shared that she has been in the industry for a long time. And so in the early 90s, she was working for a bank. I didn't catch where, but like school districts and public entities, the goal now, like a lot of these funds you get are all FDIC insured. Well, you might ask, how do you FDIC insure $70 million? It's only 250,000 per account. So what they do is they literally outsource it to hundreds of banks and create hundreds of accounts. And this all started because you ever seen the show The Deadliest Catch, that show in Alaska? So in the 90s, what happened, there was a litigation, a lawsuit, because people work in this boat and get hurt, and then their kids would grow up and where are you going to work? On the boat.
Yeah.
And they get hurt, right? And so someone filed a lawsuit on this company. And so a judge in New York had ruled that, hey, $30 million is to the plaintiffs in the suit. And they called this bank in Wisconsin. They're not sure how. And they said, hey, the only thing, the judge said, the only thing is all 30 million has to be FDIC insured. At that time, it was only $100,000. So she started picking up the phone, and this is how this thing started. And that's how school districts in Wisconsin, and then really across the country, have started doing this with public entities. So ADM, she went to work with ADM. They started doing this and she opened her own firm. So it's fascinating. So I think it's interesting. So good story, I guess. And then PMA is really the biggest player in the area. They've been around for the longest, and they're like the Costco, the Walmart, right? Everyone uses them. They're the best rates, and they can get you the best amount of money for your bang for your buck. So, long story short, we're recommending that we go with PMA. We felt like they offered the cheapest fee on the dollar and could make us the most amount of money. We felt like, and they work with WISC, which is a consortium of school districts, board members are on this, district finance members, superintendents, and they allow PMA to administer the funds. And what's great about that is that their fee schedule is regulated by this board. And so there really isn't like hidden fees. And a lot of we had people present to us saying it costs you nothing. I'm like, well, nothing's free. Right. So like, where is it at? Well, you don't pay it. That's really the story. Right. So that means we're making less on our money. So there's always something, right? So we really felt like they could, given their track record and other districts going with them, along with the fees and the optimization of dollars, we felt like they were the best. So that will be our recommendation here in 2 weeks. Any questions on that section? No. Great. So project manager, really quick overview here. So we gave the presentation in late November here and where we were at. We had the position posted about 2 weeks later. And then the position closed last Friday. We've been reviewing applicants, and we have screeners actually tomorrow. I believe we have, I think 9 of them tomorrow or 8 of them. And looking at conducting formal interviews next week. So that's exciting. We had about 30 applicants. I think that's the next slide. It is. 30 total applicants, 20 from Better Teams, 6 from LinkedIn, and 4 from WeCan. And as I mentioned, 8 or 9 calls tomorrow. And I just wanted to try to give some key areas of where we're really seeing it. This is an ongoing kind of like the job description's out there. It's very broad, but like we're trying to like key in on where are the areas that we feel are most important, at least initially for this person, whoever they may be in this position. And again, the goal here is, as we've said from the beginning, the referendum for facilities is the beginning of work. It's the first step. And so we really want the community to feel the transparency, feel the communication ongoing around the projects that we're doing along with where we started, right? So this person's job, beyond managing these owners reps and the construction management firm, is to help communicate, is to help people feel like it's transparent, to invite them in, to create events and to create spaces for them to do so. And so it's a really unique job, which I think is interesting for us to help create along with you guys, because there'll be things you'll recommend. Well, that's a good idea. And so we really look for your feedback in developing it. But a couple of things I want to mention: oversight and coordination, monitor, provide guidance for construction management firms, owners, representatives, ensure alignment with project goals. Like, we want them to be the face of the referendum with us. And so when you have questions, that's the person that we're going to talk to, right? But they're going to be the hub for communication from us to them and the CM and the OR. We kind of developed an internal referendum team. So they'll really be taking the lead in managing that, creating weekly schedules with us, maybe it's bi-weekly team that'll be working. Really being the person that will work with Caroline and her team really directly for stakeholder communication. A good example, I kind of mentioned the next one, board and committee updates. I could really see there becoming a referendum update every 2 weeks for you guys. A one-stop shop for you to see, and that might have different areas. Maybe there's a financial section, maybe there's a project update, maybe there's a communication area, like some of the areas that hit each of your committees, so that you feel confident and comfortable. I can see them maybe coming quarterly to your committee meeting. And so we're just trying to develop some ideas that might help kind of broaden that a bit out. So, and then the last two, obviously meeting financial goals. We've set a dollar amount for each project. We want to make sure we're within that. And then having some quality assurance on ensuring the projects are meeting the standards that we're expecting of those bids. Any questions on that? Okay. So last year is just kind of an update on where we're at with the facility bids.
One question.
Sure.
What's the expectation the person would start?
Well, it'll depend on the person, but we're hoping as soon as possible once interviews are done. So pending interviews really next week, what their schedule might look like, we would hope to get to the board as early as possible to approve that contract. So hopefully the 27th, likely probably the first meeting in February, and then given their employment situation,
sure,
2 weeks is standard, but it could be longer. So
are the candidates all local?
The ones we're bringing in, almost all of them are within an hour of the area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Facility bids, kind of take us in here. So again, we have 2 different RFPs that are going live. The main holdup obviously is getting them in the paper, which is official, Southwest Now. So work with Sarah on that. Thank you again for your help with that. So those will be live on Wednesday. This is a little bit different of a process because financial services doesn't require them to get into schools and see some spaces, right?
Yep.
And that's a different process. So it looks a little different, but you can see here, the 27th for the construction management RFP is building tours with interested vendors. So we have a process for that where they can come and we'll spend a whole day with people who are interested. So we'll meet, we'll go through where we're going to go, and they won't get to see every space, which is unfortunate because that would take a week, but they'll get an idea of like, what are we getting ourselves into, and what are the questions they might have from those, and then they'll be able to submit questions and we'll be able to respond to those questions. Then they'll be able to feel as educated as possible to give a realistic bid if they could do it, right? And again, this isn't like give us a dollar amount for this project. We've set a budget. So can you do 15 windows for $100,000, like whatever that is, right? And so they're going to get in some spaces and go, hey, how old are your schools? That might be a question, right? And they've seen 4 or 5 schools. They kind of get an idea of like, hey, all your schools are old, right? So what's it take to put new windows in with asbestos? Maybe like you get an idea of if you can do it. So that's kind of the goal. And given the number of projects and the amount of money, they'll have expected that some projects might go over and some go under, and that's just going to be a range they'll have to work with. But that's kind of expected in this work in this field. So proposal submissions are due on the 6th. Shortly after that, we'll look to bring in some firms to interview and have them present to us. And then we're hoping to really finish this up end of February board approval. So that's kind of the plan with that. And the owner's rep one is really no different. Same process, just different dates. Certainly the owner's rep tours are different days than the construction management firm. So there's a couple different odd days here and there, but same process. Look for the goal to be in front of you guys no later than the 24th, hoping to provide my committee an update early February. So lastly, prior to questions at the end here, is we've created a referendum email. And so on our website, one click away, click on the referendum tab. It's a pop-up on the right. It'll take you to this slide. That's what it looks like. You can see here the 3 bids that we just spoke about are live on the website. The financial services one's down now, I think, or will be, because that's concluded now. But on the right, there's a place for questions. So if you get any inquiries, community members, etc., until we at a later date determine maybe this new hire gets these questions, we're going to have them all go here. And I think it's going to be helpful because, people ask ORRs when these things happen, like, 6-7 months later, it's 5 years later. Hey, what was that about? We have one place we can search. It's one email database. People aren't diving through. It's just much more efficient. And it allows multiple people to review this. So it can be quicker to respond, quicker to act. So if you guys get questions, please, even just copy the email and say, hey, I've copied the email for you to review. Please email this email address. They'll be happy to help you. So I just wanted to put that plug in your ear in case you get questions. So I think that's all I have.
Questions for the board? Nope. So I just want to say that I want to thank you, Aaron, and the work of your team, because being able to get our bond rating up and being able to get all this done in a timely manner has nothing to do with us and has everything to do with you and your team. We can approve it because it makes sense and it's logical, but we wouldn't have the knowledge to be able to do these things in this time frame. So I just want to express my thanks to you for doing that, because it is saving real dollars to our community and it's providing more real dollars to get more projects done. As we know, there's much more to be done than we had approved in that bond. Sure. And so this is really, really helpful. So I just wanted to express my thanks to you for that work, because I know that a lot of times it's behind the scenes and you're not getting as many of the accolades as you and your team deserve, because without that forward push coming from you and that thought process and the planning, we wouldn't be able to move and be as nimble as we have been in our district. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anything else from the board? If not, thank you very much, Mr. Norris. And we'll move on to our second workshop this evening, 12.2, our enrollment projections and open enrollment seats for 25-26. We have Ms. Bergman here. More handouts.
Trained her.
Peacefully trained.
All these slides. Yeah. You really taught me that, right? We do.
Oh, we know.
Yeah, go big,
Thank you.
You.
That's enough.
Well, that's already, I lost the crowd.
You're good to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you for your time. We are going to go over the enrollment projections and staffing for the 25-26 school year. I know that seems far away, but it's here already.
Oh, yeah.
So my goal tonight is to describe the enrollment projection process used for the 25-26 school year, outline the enrollment projections district-wide and by school, and then forecast how the projection impacts available open enrollment seats for the 25-26 school year. The timeline that we're going to use is tonight. We're going to do the workshop for the board. And then on the 27th, come back and ask for the vote from the board. And then February 24th will be the workshop, staffing, pupil count, enrollment, revenue, and preliminary budgets by Aaron. So what we do to get the enrollment projection process done for the school for the 25-26 school year is we roll up the current year students from third Friday count. So that means the sixth graders roll up to seventh grade goes up to eighth grade. And then for the transition years, we take like kindergarten and sixth grade, seventh grade, and we tie in some historical data, make sure that those numbers stay accurate. Projecting enrollment, and we cast kids forwards, we remove all of our 24 and 25 seniors are removed. Then each grades are advanced. And then this year we used historical data and we progressed our ninth graders with an 11% increase. We did not add any sixth graders because typically we've seen a decrease in sixth grade, and we added 11% to kindergarten based off our historical analysts. We also projected our projected enrollment for next year's open enrollment. We only enroll up to 96% of our classroom full because we want to leave room to make sure that we have residence seats available. So if somebody moves into the Wilson area, that we have actual seats for class students to move into the seats.
It's 92%.
92.
Yeah, you said 96.
Oh, sorry.
Just want to make sure we're clear on that.
92%. Yeah. So every class is projected to 92. So in front of you, you have a folded piece of paper. You'll have this graph in front of you. These are half the sheet is our actual projections for 2021 to 2024. What you'll see is in yellow is our high schools. So it starts with it starts with the senior class and then goes seniors, juniors, sophomores, freshmen. I'm not sure why it's moving. I apologize. And then our intermediates are in green and our elementaries are in blue. And then to the right, so you'll see that next year's projection is to the right of the dark line there. And that's what we're projecting for next year's projected enrollment. To the right, you'll see what. Okay, yeah, I'm not sure why it's just jumping ahead. To the right, I just bring this screen to your eyes is because what you'll see statewide is that enrollment is just decreasing. These are our projected enrollment by grade. So our senior class next year, you can see is at 622. And then as you track it down to our K4, you can see each grade is kind of just shifting down a little bit. So you'll see that going down per grade.
And I wouldn't, just so you know, I wouldn't look too far past 25, 26, because if you look through the 359 and 4K, it's not forecast with adjustments, right? Because it's unknown, like families don't have to enroll kids in 4K. So that's why when you go from 4K to kindergarten, it goes 359 to 413. That's a huge jump. Well, it's because it's not required, but a lot of families enroll their kids in kindergarten, right? So it's just, I mean, that goes up again. So I wouldn't get too, I know the numbers get really daunting if you look across it.
If you get to the elementary school.
Yeah.
So here you can see our schools by bands, and that's what you see below. So what's interesting is that for next year, you can see that there's 155 kids lower in our projection, but really 117 of them are coming from the 9th through 12th grade band. So why I included this is if you look for this 25, 26 projection, you see the different bands by grade 9 through 12, grade 6 through 8, grade K4 through 5. Our projection for next year is 6,464. And that's a difference of 155, but 117 of those kids are coming less than in grades 9 through 12. I'm afraid to touch the button.
That's really good news. That means we're stable at K8. It's been stable. That's what we've projected. And in this graph that Connie showed, you can kind of see it, right? Like there's a correlation line that K8 really first through 8, it's like every grade's in the 400s, mid 400s. That's 8 years of data to suggest our district in about 5 years is going to be mid 400s, maybe a bit of a bump in 9th grade. Hard to tell yet, but you can see that 512. Well, the year before that was 480. Okay, so maybe our high schools are going to live in the 500. It's like it's good to see this. People say, "Oh, you're declining." Well, yeah, for a few more years, but this is really good data to show that. Well, we have flattened out to Connie's point. So, yeah.
And here I included the last couple of years. So here you can see this year our projected numbers
And our actual numbers, we were off by 2.5%. Third Friday to actual projection from last year. But I did pull the numbers. Brendan, I'm not sure why is it jumping. For those of you who don't know, yesterday or Friday was the second Friday count. When we did the numbers for that, we were only off by 1.5%. So as we get those numbers into the state, we can get a closer look at the numbers. We'll look again and see how close we were. 23, 24, we were only off by 1.4. 22, 23, we were off by 1. I apologize. I'm not sure what's going on with my computer.
Just pause for a second. We'll switch laptops.
Yeah, it's like just jumping.
Mine does that. I say it's haunted.
Yeah. I'm not even,
Get it on that one.
like touching it.
But mine does, yeah.
Can we get it on that one that's there?
So the 22, 23, you can see that the projected was only off by 1%, which is what we always aim to get to. 1% or less. All right, so here's the 24, 25 that we started out. This year we were at 2.5. The actual was 6,786, and then on third Friday we looked and we were off by 2.5%. But when I pulled the numbers on second Friday in January, we were only at 1.5. So we're hoping to finalize those numbers for DPI next week, and then that will get us down to that 1.5%.
Is that additional 1% just kids that didn't get counted before?
It's like enrolled since.
So we have 1% increase.
Correct.
Just in enrolling between September and
Yep.
January.
Yes. And then as you can look back to 23, 24, you can see we were actually closer on our projection to our actual 1.4%. In 22, 23, we were even closer. We were projected 7,239, and we got 7,161. And then 21, 22, we were at 1.5 again. So the process that we use to project students to by rolling them up and then looking at historical data actually gets us really close to what we're enrolling in school at the 92%, and then waiting for residents to kind of go to the actual schools really does work, and we're using our historical data to staff correctly. How do we determine our staffing needs for the next year? We determine our 25, 26 by our projected enrollment. We apply our approved board section/class matrix projections. We project enrollment at each school by the determined number of sections required to cover those numbers. And then we determine the number of staff required based on the number of sections, resulting in the number of open enrollment seats that we will allow for each grade level band. So here you can see, and you have this sheet in front of you, the schools and then the current staff at each school for the 24-25 school year, the projected enrollment for 24-25, and then what the third Friday enrollment was for 24-25. The yellow column is because we don't have the numbers in for this past Friday yet. So once we come back, we're hoping we'll have those numbers in from second Friday count. And then what we project for the 25-26 school year.
So if you're looking closely at this table, the current third Friday, that TFS enrollment 24, that's kind of where, within 1%, I think to Noah's question a minute ago, that's where the schools are at today. Here's an idea of each school. It's just kind of interesting. Yeah.
Am I reading it right? Oh, never mind. I'm not. Ignore me.
Yep.
So here is where the section size and student to teacher ratio comes in for each grade. So oftentimes we'll get questions about like, what is the recommended class size? What is the class max? How, especially when we're asking about open enrollment, how would we build to for 92%? So the planned 92% class max for each grade is what I use for open enrollment. And then the planned class max is the number that the board has approved. And that's what I use to see if there's available seats for each grade level. So using, how do we determine the section size? Staffing, and then the board policy, teacher handbook, the class size ranges, and then the student to teacher ratio chart that you just saw helps me look at each grade and see if we have optional seats to offer for open enrollment. And then the last chart that you have, and I'll walk you through the first one, so that, and then you can, I'm not gonna read each one to you, is our open enrollment seats that we're asking the board for the 25-26 school year. So if you look at the top row, which is K4, it says the desired class size is 18. We need 22 sections to fit our district capacity size is 386. Our projected enrollment is 359. We have 0 students currently on a tuition waiver for 25-26. The resident projected enrollment is 359. The student to section ratio is 17.51. New open enrollment seats that I'm asking for is 37 for K4. And then so I'm asking for a total of 37 seats for K4. So when you add all of those seats together on the green, all the way down, I'm asking for a total of 156 total open enrollment seats for the 25-26 school year.
So, historically, I know we often have a decent amount of seats open in 4K and 5K. Can you give me an idea of those seats that we've opened up, what % are actually filled?
Yes, we're gonna keep going.
Oh, there's more.
Yep.
Okay.
We're not looking at, sorry. So it goes into our open enrollment history. So open enrollment over time, we've traditionally, OE in and OE out. Traditionally, we have last year data and past, we have 1,300 kids going out and then 471 kids going in. We've been tracking the data, not just for this year, but for previous years of open enrollment seats that were approved, offered, total in, and then the number of total seniors. So for last year, there was 133 students. Open and accepted seats out of the 133 that we offered were 84. Total open enrollment in was 471, and then with the 65 seniors. Total seats. Now that doesn't mean that we offered 65 seats. It just means total throughout their educational career, they got a seat and they ended up with seniors.
So typically, 40 to 60% is an acceptance rate by grade. Yeah, I don't know if I have that offhand. We don't have that by grade, do we?
No.
Yeah.
By grade, no. Total.
Yeah.
40.
We have 4K and 5K because
I could get that for you. No,
it's just because I know we usually, a good chunk of our open enrollment seats every year, I
Yeah.
think are in those 2 grades
Yep.
alone.
I have the data back at the building, but I don't have it. I just have it overall.
It's more an interest piece for my, I'm not saying we shouldn't open it because I know these are spread across all of our elementary schools, right? It's not like you could say, oh, that's 2 classes, let's just not have 2 classes. That's not how it works. And so I understand that perspective of it, but in the fact that people don't have to put their kids in to 4K is another part of it. And same thing with 5K, like you're seeing kids coming in at first grade. When that happens, is there an not an entrance test, but like an evaluation that happens for kids who are just joining school for the first time to see where they're at? Because if someone goes in 4K and then they're in 5K, versus someone who only shows up at 5K or only shows up at first grade, presumably they weren't in school somewhere else and then they're coming here, they might be starting at a very different point than a child who started at 4K, then 5K, then first grade. And then the fact that kid might then require additional support to try to catch them up to where their peers are in that class. So I don't know if we do any sort of evaluation like that.
Also, a fast bridge, every student would take a fast bridge exam. So that would be the first measure where we would determine, where the kid is on level. But if you have kids also who are multi-language students, those students would take more of a language proficiency test to determine, as far as what their home language is and the language that they're given that to. So what assistance they need in that.
Okay, so the fast bridge class, that test isn't until, what is it, October? When does that first one take?
September.
Okay. Elena?
I was just wondering, is FastBridge a state test or is it just for the teachers to see?
Great question. So FastBridge is actually, there's a correlation between FastBridge and the forward exam. So each district chooses some form of a measurement that's other than the forward. And we as a district, we choose FastBridge. Other districts may choose Renaissance. There's some districts that choose, I believe we had MAP in the past year. So those are examples of different versions of a FastBridge that district chooses.
Yeah, it's some of this is philosophical, I would have bet, right? But some of the thinking here with seats too is our in elementary, as you all know, our staff in most situations, not all, most 50% likely teach across grade level. So you see kindergarten 1, maybe 1, 2. And so, the seats, we try to work them out so that way we get students earlier than not, right? A student coming in 4th grade, well, we only have 2 years to work with that student versus in 1st grade, a long time with that student. And so we try to take that into consideration because again, in high school, you're seeing 9th and 10th grades, sometimes 9th, 10th, and 11th in classes. So the sections all get put in a bucket sometimes and get distributed across the school, right? So it's, it's what we think works best for the school district and the kids. And certainly, it's difficult to take a student in 5th grade, but if the student's been here, we're open to doing that because it's best for the kid, likely the family, the school. And so there's some considerations there, but I do admit that's something we haven't, dove too deeply into is the acceptance rate. But 4K, 6th grade, 9th grade, transition years are big years where you see a lot of families looking. So I had to guess without knowing. So
Mr. Becker?
In that same vein, I'm glad you went in that direction because I was looking at where those numbers were and given the focus and the emphasis on early literacy and just hearing a lot of evidence and discussion on it. I think we had 4 or 5 target elementary schools that we're just seeing more and more issues with the younger kids. I wonder if we've spent time considering lowering the number and keeping that student to teacher ratio maybe even a little bit below the 18 or 20% that we have prescribed. And I wonder if that could be an effective means of boosting those literacy and everything else.
Sure. I think that might be a bigger question as to room space. So, I mean, as we've leveled out at the elementary level, and we did that school consolidation, how many will we have space to be able to reduce, right? Because if you're reducing the class sizes, is what I believe what I'm hearing, then you have to have another class to put those kids in, right? So I wouldn't disagree with your sentiment, Mr. Becker. I think, but it would take, a bigger piece to evaluate what space that we have now with our level numbers. Would we have the ability to reduce it by how much? Because I agree, I think our reduction in class size helps everyone. It helps staff, it helps students to be able to do that. And this is, they're following more policy at this point, which we could reconsider. But I think that's a bigger, whole to really look and see what could we do and how much effect could we have on doing it.
It is by nature, like unless a school has a significant increase in like families moving in that we didn't expect, by nature, the schools are staffed. I'm sorry, the students are under enrolled by 8%.
Yeah, like 92, right?
So like essentially the open enrollment, if they're enrolled at 90, the open enrollment's the 2% to get to 92. So then if no one moves in, they're lowered by 8% across the school. Now you can see on here like seniors at 30. Well, because AP Geo might run at, or that's a bad example, AP Euro might run at 34 because we're not going to run 2 sections of AP students all going to that class would be fine, right? Bio freshman's probably running at 22, 23. So across the school, it's probably close to 26 and a half. It's just, it's how it plays out across the whole building.
You can't put a third of a kid in a seat.
Yeah, right.
But to your point, like I'm less worried about the secondary school level, I guess, versus elementary where those.
It is much more difficult there. Yeah.
It's that same philosophy you're talking about, though. We would rather have a kid come in at 4K rather than 10th grade.
Yeah.
From a different district where we don't know them, we don't know what they're coming from or what their background is. It's better to have them in-house sooner. So
and a lot of times, I shouldn't say a lot. My presumption is a lot of times families are, oh, my kid's gonna be in 4K. I already have a kid in the district. It's like they know so we try to work those things out, right? To, you know, there's a preference for siblings in the process. So, you know, things like that. So.
Ms. Carr?
I feel it, usually at this workshop in particular, every year when we talk about open enrollment out, somebody on the board usually asks the question, have we looked at the data of why they're enrolling out? And you know, we.
The next slide right here, we have told where they're going.
Right. So, and I'm looking, oh, okay.
No.
And to that, you know, 49% open enroll out to in elementary, 59% open enroll out, and they choose MPS. So again, that I ask myself, you know, why is that?
Haven't been able to like put a pin in like the one, like they're going to this specific school at a language immersion or something like.
Right.
Like I know that's come up like the 3 years I've been up at this table, and every year everyone's like, well, where are they going? And we just haven't been able to put a pin in that.
Right.
The
and figure out.
communications committees already has this on its radar.
Yeah.
This is something that we're gonna be
Okay.
going back and looking at it. This is something that we actually talked about, I think, in my last update, is to, we want to go back. This is something that I brought up, is to find out exactly why families are leaving, and when they're choosing other districts, what are those reasons, and getting very, very specific. So I think it's on there.
One of the things that we've kind of discussed just is saying is like, our kids staying there 1-8 and then coming back because their siblings are together. That might be an option because they know MPS is a 1-8 model. I mean, we've just been throwing things at the wall to see if they stick, trying to figure out like, why are, you know, this, you know, what they consider, you know, staying versus, you know, coming back. We just have not found a school model, like it's not a language, it's not a. So we haven't been able to figure that exactly.
There's a couple of things I think in this slide that I find interesting. So there's about 1,300 kids, right, total, roughly.
Yeah.
So 787 are in MPS, but if you really boil it down, how many are K8? It's almost 600 kids. So 50% of the kids that open and roll out are in an MPS K8 system. Interesting. That's interesting to me. You know, the one thing that is frustrating is that in Opal, it's recommended but not required that you list where every kid physically goes to school. So like in Opal, if you looked at our website, our side, you would see X number of kids at Hale. It's not required to do that. MPS does not do that. So we actually can't boil down where the kids are. We know they are in MPS and it's certified, but we don't know where they are. But it's a little frustrating that we can't, I guess.
My guess would be,
that.
my guess, based on just the fact that I have a neighbor who sends her kid to the German immersion school, is the specialty schools on your, for the younger, at least for our, that's my guess. But again,
I know that you've said in the past, Aaron, that there's a large percentage of these kids who never attended our district. Do we know what percent of this number is that situation?
So offhand, no. And the reason that information came up, I think, is the last couple of times is when there was a study done most recently, I think it was a few years back now, 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah.
Is the information that company did was they cold called, they talked to families, and what they found is that a lot of these families actually moved here and then thought it'd be more advantageous to keep their kid in the K8. Yeah. So they drive them down, whatever they're doing, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what they found. Now, I don't know, you know, to what percent of families they spoke to, enough to make that assumption based upon the data they found or they pulled. So
I think some of this is also probably driven by families, you know, that are, you know, mom or dad lives in that particular area, and if we have a certain reputation and they say, oh, well, I'm in Menominee Falls, and so we'd rather go with that or something.
In that situation, are they considered sub-resident? I mean, so they could be double residents? Is that basically how that works? Is there any way to track that?
yeah, no, so it depends on who the primary is. So in this circumstance, if they're enrolling saying, oh, I'm living with, it's where they live, right? And if they're saying to MPS, I'm living with mom or dad who lives here, then they're saying, well, you're a non-resident student, and they don't have a selection. They just take whoever enrolls. So that's how that works. Which there could be that could be true to this point too. That's maybe some of the reason there's been a dip. Maybe more families are like, oh, they're living here. I don't know. You know, it's hard to know.
So when we look at the numbers, I had a conversation with Mike Thron today, and he said there's a reduction of about 6% from the previous year of students who are open enrollment out. We are going to continue to tick down that number, tick at that number, where that number is increasing, I should say. And so that's the effort. I think there are a variety of issues or reasons why. One, we have to increase the kind of opportunities our kids have. That's bottom line. Whether it be K-8, I heard K-8, I heard German immersion, I heard dual language, all these kind of magnet schools, any type of school you want to. You can call them what you want, but there are opportunities that currently we don't offer. And that's a challenge. But
these were all, and this is again, we can always reiterate this stuff, but I just want to let you know that we spent Joe Becker and I sat on that VAC committee. K-8 was something that I advocated very highly for. When Brendan and I first started on the board, one of our initiatives was looking at some type of immersion school. The feedback that we were always given by administration is that families were not interested in it. I don't know why that is. I don't know if we need to do a better dive into it, because I honestly, I see us losing a lot of families to this. The other way we lose families is that it's an impression that people have. On the east side of our district, we have a large Hispanic community. I've already talked with families about this. The impression is that private schools are better than public schools. So unless we are going to be able to show that we can provide those opportunities at St. Augustine's and what's the big high school that they're always like, yay, Crystal Ray, we can't compete with that. And families are willing to drive their kids to 6th and what I forgot, it's by my parents' house, and they're willing to do that because they have opportunities. They have this beautiful pool. They have soccer fields. They have all that kind of stuff. So I think that the one thing that I brought up on the communications team that I've been really, bringing to Carolyn is being on that east side and explaining to people like what our schools can bring to them, and educating them that just because it's a private school doesn't mean that it's any better than a public school. So I think there's a big component of messaging that is being missed that I've talked about many, many times. But I'm not trying to be like a Debbie Downer. I'm just letting you know that we have talked about in the past bringing on initiatives like immersion schools, VAC committee. We talked about, we brought up so many things, K-8, 9, 12. Do we do, like I know in Ocon, they do 5, right? 5th grade starts at middle school. All these things came up, and what came back was, that's not how I grew up. We've always done it this way, and this is the way that we want. And I don't say that's a bad thing, but I think that there were, and then it was, well, what if we have one school that's large enough to contain a 5 K-8? Is it fair that we can offer in one community as opposed to a smaller school like, I don't know, Franklin? That's not big enough to maintain, unless you had one of each classroom. So it just became a lot of different, like, well, who is it equitable, this type of thing. And it's certainly, I think, something that we need to dive back into so that we can figure, to provide more opportunities for our families. I'm just kind of throwing out there that some of the feedback that we've gotten.
Yeah, I recall those conversations, how you bring that up. And so I remember people saying like 5th graders with 8th graders. That was a thing too. I think that was I don't know. So just, that was a lot I'm back in that mind now. I'm picturing a Google folder with 50 things in it right now. Yeah.
We did a survey asking like for specialty schools as well, trying to figure out a STEM school or language immersion, and the survey was kind of a mixed bag of responses. There was like, oh yeah, the community really wants one of these or one of those. That's why it was dropped.
I would also argue that survey, that information was not properly brought to our committee, and it was towards the end of someone's tenure, and so it was very. I don't even know. I was the head of that committee, and I can't even tell you what. I was just told they were kind of interested in this, kind of interested in that. Don't have the data for you, and that was where it was left. So, so that might be something that we might go back to and look at.
So before we start, said a lot, so I just want.
I'm sorry. I just held it all in. I haven't really.
No, you're good. You're good. My background, I have a lot of experience in working with specialty schools. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm hesitant to use the word magnet, but sometimes that word is used because it attracts kids to go to a different place. And so I have a lot of experience with that. I am definitely open to exploring that could certainly be a part of the next round with our strategic plan and how we look at the various program offerings in our district. Very open, and I think it's perfect timing. Okay, so look for that input when that time comes. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Kaiser?
My comment was, I want this in the strategic plan that we have a goal, especially to understand our community better. To what are we serving? So that was my comment.
Sleep.
Well, and kind of along those lines is trying to maybe find a way to, kind of touch base and touch back in with, recent graduates. Cause I know having a recent graduate myself and talking to a lot of the parents, especially over the holidays, cause all the kids were home. A lot of the feedback that I heard was they weren't prepared. You weren't ready. There wasn't enough options at the high school level for like you had mentioned earlier in your report too, as far as, kind of saying like, if this is where you think you want to go, here's classes to choose from, and having a lot of those options, AP classes, things like that. And I know some of it sometimes is just the amount of kids and being able to have enough kids to to be able to say, okay, yeah, we're going to hire a teacher for this class or whatnot. But I think trying to check back in with those kids and get some of that more recent right now from those that have already gone through it to try and better it would be helpful. And being that the trades and things like that beyond just four-year college. And I know we are growing in that, and my kids love that, but even more so because it just seems to be stronger and stronger every year. But that was a lot of what I heard over break is our kids weren't prepared or they didn't have these options. And so I think to that is some of the reason too why they move out or they go out.
So the input of students and former students is very important to me. And because they are the ones who are directly impacted most recently. So I would say as we work to redesign the profile of our graduate, that you would assist me in getting some of those students, because a lot of times when we call for them, they don't show up on. So that's something that we're going to
Yeah, just come hang out at our
work with our associations and get some of those recent graduates, because I think their input is definitely going to be valuable to.
And I have a few around. Too.
Yeah, I think I would also ask that we also put a focus on making sure that kids that receive special education services also get followed up on, because I think that's a very important part, because I can tell you, I'll give you my son's name already about that, because I think there's a few things that we could do to support those students post-graduation.
Are the numbers that you showed us for people, the ones that go out, does that include private schools?
No.
So this is only public schools. So I saw New Berlin on that list. They don't do open enrollment.
Well, they don't take any new students the last few years, but students that had historically been in are still aging through the process.
They opened up 50 seats one time. So you're saying 26 came from our district?
Could have. I mean, I can go back. I'm pretty sure they had accepted seats when they failed the referendum a couple of years in a row, like going back 7-8 years. We looked at this a while ago. I can't recall
It's been
offhand.
some time. I know they opened up 50 seats once, and San Felipe was trying to get preferential treatment for New Berlin School District. And they did that only to try and say, oh, look, we're taking kids. Then after that, they didn't do that.
Yeah.
And so,
and New Berlin loses way more kids than they get to that comment too. That came up
because they got Elmbrook and they got Whitnall, Muskego, north and south of them, and then Waukesha. So yeah, I believe it.
So my goal is to come back in 2 weeks and ask the board to approve 156 seats. That does include the students who are on tuition waivers for the 24-25 school year. And then that will be January 27th.
Does this have special ed seats in it?
Right now, with the calculations, there are no special ed seats available for the 25-26 school year.
Okay. Questions from the board? No. All right. Thank you very much.
Sorry about the computer glitch.
No, have that thing looked at.
Aaron has a much worse time.
What's going on?
My computer's the old one. I haven't changed it yet, so
that's just my luck.
All right. That ends our second workshop for the evening. So I look for more
To adjourn.
Wow.
I'm sorry. I didn't
Wow.
hear
You took a long meeting.
Everyone can leave except for
You
Jane.
took a
This
long
far I
meeting.
have to talk.
A lot of numbers.
All right, we have a motion. We have, who seconded?
I'll
Okay.
second it if nobody
Okay,
did.
second.
All those in favor?
Second.
Opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.